All right. Thank you, everyone, so much for joining us on this Thursday afternoon, Wednesday. It's Wednesday. I don't know what day it is here. For our monthly Slow Gardens webinar. Today, we are going to be talking about donating school garden produce to those in need. So I know that in many parts of the country right now, we are coming up on the peak of harvest season. And there are many things you can do with your school garden produce, whether it's utilizing it in cooking classes or taste tests, maybe in the school cafeteria. Um, but today we're going to talk about donating it. I'm going to go ahead and mute everyone. Hold on one second. Okay, that should be better. So here's a list of our presenters today. We're joined by a couple of guest presenters, and I'll let them do their own introductions. But we have a nice geographic spread here. We're represented by Thom Duncan from Charlotte, North Carolina, who will tell you more about a Meals on Wheels program donation from Friendship Gardens, and then we have a couple of folks from Denver Urban Gardens here where I'm based, and then we'll also hear the Slow Food USA perspective from my colleague Andy as well. Just some housekeeping. I just did this, but I'm muting participants so we can reduce background noise. And if you'd like to comment or ask a question, please use the chat function. This webinar is being recorded and will be available on our website, and the link is listed there. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Thom. Thom, I'm just going to unmute you here, and then it is all you.
Great. So I assume you can hear me, and you will soon be hearing a chainsaw in the background. I have a new neighbor who seems content to be clear-cutting the neighborhood, but oh, the joys. Friendship Gardens is a started as a partnership between Slow Food Charlotte and Friendship Trays, which is the Meals on Wheels program here in Charlotte. Friendship Trays is in their 40th year. They serve roughly 750 meals a day, 5 days a week, 52 weeks a year, except for holidays. We started in 2009 with 4 gardens. You can go ahead and move to the next slide. Of course, we like to have a sense of humor, and so you've always got a board to deal with, or in our case, we don't, so we kind of create one. You can go ahead to the next slide. So we started in we missed a slide. Can you go back one? Can you go back one more?
Sorry, Thom. I'm on the getting to work slide with the boy holding the seedlings.
Yeah, I think there are 2 more before that, after the one. Really? Okay, well, seems strange.
Sorry about that.
Can you go forward one more? Okay, it looks like probably a third of the slides didn't come over with it. So anyway, it doesn't really matter because what I do is just talk about stuff. So we started in 2009 with about 4 gardens, and one of those was behind the Meals on Wheels kitchen building. And so that's kind of where we came up with the idea of why don't we have a network of gardens growing food for Meals on Wheels. So that started in 2009. We initially got funding from a local organization called the Women's Impact Fund here in Charlotte, which is professional women that donate to a fund that they create, and then they choose who to support. They chose us in that year, and it gave us the money to build out the network. Fast forward to today, and we have 99 gardens in our network in Mecklenburg County, and an urban farm at a high school, where this picture you're looking at now is. We've been at the urban farm now for 3 years. We're in about, 2/3 of the way through our 3rd year. And we've been continuing. consistently donating food from the beginning to Meals on Wheels, but once we got the farm, we began to kind of go up to scale. 58 of our gardens are at school gardens, so there is a large educational component to our work, not just access, but access and education are the tenets of our organization. And so the schools, one of the things to be in the network, we have a couple of requirements. One of them is everyone is required to keep some of the food that they grow for themselves. We are adamant that if you're going to do work in the garden, that you should be one of the beneficiaries of the work that you do for all the right reasons, so that you can enjoy the fruits of your labor, so that you can get the taste and the health and nutrition from it. So school gardens often will do in-classroom tastings. There are some of our schools that are in Title I communities. A lot of them are, but some of them I know send food home with some kids who don't have access to much food at all. There are actually some homeless kids that have taken food out of the gardens that the garden leader has supported. Each and every one of our gardens has a garden leader, and they are all required to donate some percentage of their bounty to friendship trays, with the exception of what we call therapy gardens, which are homeless shelters or addiction recovery. Go ahead to the next slide just to see what the heck it is. Okay, I think you're using a different version of PowerPoint, but that's okay. Yeah, so community is huge. We have volunteer groups from churches, from neighborhood associations, from corporations. We have faith-based communities. Let's go to the next slide, see where we are on this. And the other thing that I would say, let me go, I'll keep this up. I want to pull up my version because I have little talking points in it to remind me to tell you guys this stuff. Pardon my distraction. Okay, so one of the things that we believe is when at the intersection of collaboration and need is the opportunity for funding. We discovered that very early on, and I would highly recommend that if you have a couple of partners and you are addressing a specific need, then that is actually that intersection we sometimes refer to it as grant bait. But it's a place that funders always love, especially when there's collaboration. That seems to be a hot button now in funding, and it definitely gets results. One thing that we found that when there is collaboration and need, there is always a story and there are always metrics that you can use to support your case for asking for money. You do not have to be active in that field initially, which is where we were. We were building gardens, but we didn't have a history of it. But we did have partnerships. Some of them were in name, some of them were in agreements that had yet to be realized. And so those metrics and those stories define the work that you're going to do. And initially, until you get going, that's really all you have. But you can start by just creating those partnerships. As you move forward, you actually do the work. Then you have a history. So you're taking the metrics and the stories of the work that you're doing, and you can measure that, and you can take those out and say, here initially was the need, here initially was what's going on in the community, here is how we engaged, and here are our results. And so you can take that to go forward to use to pursue more funding. Certainly then you have the history. You also have the credential of doing what you've said you've done, we're going to do. One of the weird things that we found in funding is that, and this is true with large amounts of money more so, is people will fund an idea and they won't fund an organization over time, which seems completely backward. These are large corporations, and they just kind of like to say that, look at the great work we're doing, and they will move to another subject the next year. So if you happen to be the shiny penny, which we were for a while, it's a great experience, and I would say make the most of it, but never, ever rely on it because it's not going to stick around. You definitely need to be seeking funding from other sources ongoing. The other little bit of advice we've found is that you have to ask for money. It is very rare that people are going to seek you out and just give it to you. They will, but it's a job. Once you have the history, once you have the stories, once you have the metrics, you need to start knocking on doors. Take lots of pictures because that's going to help support all the work you do. The stories obviously are heartstrings. The metrics are the numbers that people giving the money want to see backing up. Another tip we would say, it's kind of a big secret, but
Muted.
experiences, and we pretty much found out that we were giving away a lot of value and doing that for free. So we always ask, and we'll often get things like a dump truck of compost, tools, materials to build, like a work cleaning station, or a hoop house. So always, always ask. Switch the picture again, please, Lauren. Yeah, so in 2013, our network donated over 8,000 pounds of food to Meals on Wheels. 2014, we're over 12,000 pounds donated. Last year, we donated over 13,000 pounds. And in 2016, year to date, we're just over 8,000 pounds so far. So we'll probably hit 14 or 15 because the fall crops tend to be things like butternut squash, which weighs a ton. Next picture. Ding. Yeah, so that's another volunteer, a corporate group. Let's go to the next picture again. All right, so there's an old version of what I just said. The other thing we do is, I would say that go to the next picture, see if we can catch up to where I'm looking. We tend to like to decorate the places where we work. A lot of times with volunteer groups, you'll have kids, and a lot of schools, you'll have opportunities to where you're not always able to do work, but you can do things like paint pictures. Again, with volunteer groups, you might even have in the budget to keep kids busy. You can do things like this. We like to have fun. We don't like to take ourselves too seriously, and we like to ask ourselves that if we're not having fun, we should probably walk away from the work we're doing, because the last thing we all need to do is be a martyr, and that's a good thing to remind ourselves. Next slide. Ding. So we have volunteers that have a lot of fun too, and this one gal couldn't believe that she had a beet that was as large as her head, which obviously had been neglected, but she seemed to have had an affinity for it. Next slide is a mess of garlic, and so this year we probably had about 300 or 400 heads of garlic out of this. It's definitely the best crop we've probably grown. Next slide. There you get to see it, even though it's kind of scrunched. Let's go to the next slide. Is hopefully our mobile market. Yeah, so we started selling in food deserts in 2012, pretty much working out of the back of a pickup truck. We take SNAP EBT, cash credit, debit. And this year we're running 3 markets in food deserts, and we supplement what we're selling with food from the farm or the network whenever possible. Oftentimes it is not, so a lot of the food, as you can see stickers on there, especially fruit, we will buy from distributors, but the main thing to us is getting fresh food to folks who don't have it, and then supplementing it with what we grow. We do seasonally whenever we can. Next picture is probably 824 pounds of beets, which was a early summer, late spring day. Had a team of volunteers help us with that. The other thing we found this year is we will, now that we're growing to scale, we will overwhelm the kitchens. And so we began giving food to Loaves and Fishes, to Safe Alliance, which is a battered women's shelter, and then also to Heartbright, which is an organization that does very specific meals for folks that have nutritional needs that are tied directly to their health. And so we will take those and share them around whenever we overwhelm the Meals on Wheels kitchens. And next slide, I think that's it. And I'll stop until the Q&A.
Thanks, Thom. We actually have one question for you that I'll ask you right now before we move on. Morgan is wondering, how structured are your corporate team building events? Do you have materials available to help others run a day like that?
There is very little structure established, though from work group to work group, we can become extremely structured. On September 10th of coming up, we have what's called Service Jurist Day. It is a group of lawyers from all over town. We probably have 100 lawyers, which is a mind-boggling experience. And they usually have a pretty good budget with them. And so that becomes a very structured event. Keeping 100 people busy is a great opportunity, but it kind of borders on a nightmare. So we have to have teams of people there to do specific jobs. Far more, we prefer groups of a maximum of 20 people. 15 to 20 is great, especially if they have a budget of $500 to $1,000, because then we can create a project like building a hoop house at a school. Typically what we will do is strive mightily to deliver a kind of what we call a hero event, so that the group gets to build something from kind of soup to nuts to where they see it take shape and feel like they're getting a completion. So that gives them this team building kind of yaha, look what we've done. And then it allows us to get an asset out of it. All of those come from asking upfront if you have a budget. And again, people will back off, but I've had numerous ones. I'll basically tell them, we'd happy to have you out, but you might just be weeding. But if you have $500, we could do this great event. And so they'll often go back and find money for it. In fact, it's kind of hilarious how often they do. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Thom. And Morgan, Slow Food Denver has also recently been organizing corporate work days. So I'm happy to look to see what we have on file that could be a useful resource, and I can share that with you. We had another question come in, but I think we're going to wait to do Q&A until the end. So Thom, thank you so much for presenting. Sorry about those technical difficulties and slide discrepancies, but I appreciate you rolling with the punches.
That's okay. No problem.
Okay, I'm going to mute you here, and we are going to hear from Lara and Mikhaela from Denver Urban Gardens, who are going to tell us all about the produce donation program from community and school gardens here in the Mile High City. Lara and Mikhaela, you guys are up. Lara and Mikhaela, are you guys there? I know we were having some difficulties before. I'm not sure if you're dialing in from the phone or from your computer. Okay, while we wait to figure that out, I think we can go ahead and answer that second question that was for Thom. That question was from Raina, who's saying, you mentioned you help build the gardens and have 58 school gardens involved. Do the schools pay for the cost of lumber and soil, or does that come out of your grant funding? Do you have a membership fee?
Great question. If I said that, I didn't mean to allude that we built all gardens. Typically, we require three things of someone in the network: that they have sun, water, and a community. Um, with schools, we have built out a lot of school gardens, but typically they are all Title I schools, schools that can't afford it otherwise. Um, Most schools can come up with the money, and typically what we want them to do is have an investment in it. A lot of them will have PTOs or PTAs to where they get involved, and it doesn't take a lot. They can start with two or three or four by eight beds, and it's not that expensive. So it is a case by case basis, but I would say we've probably built maybe 25% of the school gardens, and the rest the schools themselves have found funding for it. We will share, we get discounts from like compost, folks who sell compost in local, like a Home Depot or a Lowe's or something. We can get discounts there for materials, but it's still not free. Does that help?
Thank you, Thom. We have our other presenters who are calling in again because we seem to be having some technical difficulties. If anyone else has any other questions, you can feel free to ask them now. I guess one of my questions for you, Thom, would be what. Oh, let's see. There is a question here. Thom, for the mobile market, can you describe how EBT SNAP clients access the produce, whether it's with a card or voucher? And did you need any special approvals for SNAP since you have no physical address?
We do have a physical address. We operate out of the Friendship Trays site or their location. So all of our application for SNAP and basically all of our business goes to that address. If that's answering that question, as far as reconciliation to those monies, mostly we take the SNAP card at two of our markets, but we are now in a new market that has the system to where they take a card and give out a token, and they're all dollar even increments. And so at that market, everything we sell rounds up to $1. So you'd like apples for $1 or something like that. So we do it both ways, but typically it's just the card. And the other thing I'll say, frankly, is we get some traction out of it, but we don't get a whole lot. Most people will pay cash or credit. So we wish that we could kind of amplify that, and maybe in time that'll happen. But so far, our SNAP sales have not been huge.
Thanks, Thom. I think we might have Lara and Mikhaela back on the line. Can you guys hear me okay? Are you there? I'm going to try unmuting everyone and then see if that fixes it. Lara and Mikhaela, are you there?
We are here. Can you hear us?
Yes. All right, I'm going to go back and individually mute everyone. We can hear you, but you're a little bit echoey. Are you on speakerphone?
We are on speakerphone, yes.
Okay, I'm muting people. If folks, if you could mute yourselves as well, that'd be great. Okay, Laura, we can hear you. It's just a little bit. Is it possible for you to use not speakerphone, like just speak into the phone normally?
Yes, I'll just speak into the phone normally. Is that better?
Yeah, thank you so much. Okay.
Okay,
You
no
guys
problem.
are up.
Okay, fabulous. Sorry for all the difficulties here. So first of all, Denver Urban Gardens, we were established in 1985 to tie together 3 community gardens, and now we support over 157 community gardens, and close to 50 of those are school-based. And because one of the signs we feel of a successful community garden is a garden that grows enough to give back to the community, we get lots of questions about how exactly to set up a food donation program. So we came up with a guide for that. The first step is to assess the desire for gardeners.
Sorry to interrupt you. Is that background noise from where you guys are, or is that if that's someone else? Could you please mute yourself?
That is somewhere else. That is not from my phone.
Okay, let's try this one more time. Sorry about this, folks. We're having some technical difficulties. Okay, Laura, are you guys able to still speak in from the phone even though I muted everyone? Okay. Let's see.
Lauren, hi. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now. Unfortunately, there's someone who has a lot of background noise who is not muting themselves. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that is not coming from our end.
Okay, it's a little bit better right now if you want to go ahead and try again. Sorry about this.
Okay, that's okay. All right. Can you still hear me?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly. Thanks.
Okay, got it. All right. So at the beginning of the season, we recommend setting up expectations with all of the community gardeners and the school. So at the opening meeting of the season, you can talk to community gardeners about starting a food donation program and what model they want to follow. Do they want to do a grow a row model? Do they want to have specific plots designated just for donation? Many of the school gardens we work with do not have summer programs, so we set up expectations with the students where when they're planting in the spring, the teachers promote sustainability. They incorporate classroom lessons on natural resources and philanthropy with their students and tell them that all the food they're planting now will be donated over the summer, and then when school starts again in the fall, it will be there for them to enjoy with garden to cafeteria or school snacks. So we make sure the students understand that they are growing first for themselves, but secondly to donate. We work with, like I said, close to 50 school gardens, and 2 of them we work with I'm going to talk about a little bit throughout. So Charles Hay World School in Inglewood has a couple different models we follow. The first, we have all of the gardeners and then we also have throughout the summer. And then Samuel's Community Garden donates everything from the school garden beds as well as some beds specifically set aside just for community. When you're setting up a food donation program, it's important to determine what community partner you're going to donate to. And there are many different ways to do this. The first way we suggest is to ask the gardeners or the school staff, administrators, ask the community who they know. A connection with a local food bank, a local donation center is a great way to go. At Charles Hay, some of the gardeners who have a personal plot in our community also work for a local food bank. And this year they have taken over one of the plots that was abandoned, halfway through the season. So they took it over for the food bank, and they're collecting food from that plot as well as all around the garden, any extra food grown for their food bank. Another way to find community partners is look for smaller local community groups. Like in Denver, we have Fresh Food Connect, which has just been started up in the 80205 zip code. And Fresh Food Connect picks up produce from your doorstep. So local gardeners, home gardeners, community gardeners can all just sign up on an app and donate. We also suggest calling in, looking at churches. Lots of churches have food banks. School counselors are a great resource to find local programs that donate food, especially to students. We can also look online at ampleharvest.org. That's a great one. And Produce for Pantries has a hunger hotline that you can call in and enter the city in Colorado you're in, and they will tell you all of the local food banks to work with. Next slide. Fabulous, thank you. So once you have the commitment set from the community and the school gardeners, and you have determined the community partner you're going to work with, we recommend you create an action plan. At our community gardeners, all of our gardeners are asked to pay a plot fee plus donate anywhere from 10 to 15 hours of volunteer time throughout the season. One of the ways this volunteer time can be spent is as part of a food donation committee. For the school part of the garden, working with school organizations like the PTA or different parent groups can be a great way to tie both the community garden and the school garden together in the food donation program. There are lots of questions to consider. Determine how formal or informal you want it to be. Think about who the best contact at the garden is going to be, as well as who the best contact at the community partner, the food bank you're going to be working with, is going to be. Make sure you have a name, an email, and a phone number for all of the people involved. It's also important to know whether or not the person you're working with at the food bank accepts text, or you just need to call. Ask the food bank what produce they can use and what they cannot use. If they cannot use something like eggplant or arugula, if that is not something they regularly give out, is there a section of their food bank where people coming in can just shop? And if they know what to do with eggplant or arugula or something more unusual, can they just pick it up? Is there a minimum amount of produce they will use? Will they take just one bunch of basil, or do they need a certain amount? also good to determine what exact day and time the drop-offs need to be made at the food bank, and again, who the best contact is on that specific day and time. Next slide. Thanks. So once the action plan has been created, share it with the community. You want to involve all of the gardeners. You want to balance ease with engagement. Signage at the garden explaining how exactly the program works is important. Be specific about the harvest times and procedures and the desired produce. At Samuel's Elementary, they have a Monday night harvesting event. They gather with members from the community garden, the school, neighbors, everybody harvests from the school garden beds, and then they enjoy a barbecue together. At Charles Hay, we just know which day of the week the Garden Donation Committee is going to take the produce to the food bank, and we have a couple coolers by the shed with ice, and when we have extra produce, we just put it in there, and then the Garden Donation Committee will harvest from the school garden beds, add it to that, and take it down to the food bank. At the donation center, make sure, again, that you have a regular drop-off time and they leave it. And that signage is important to share with the community gardeners as well, so they know where the food they're donating is going. And now I'm going to hand it over to Mikhaela, and she's going to talk about the food safety protocols.
Hi everyone, so I'm just going to talk really briefly about food safety when you're harvesting produce to donate. There's a couple of key things to keep in mind. The first thing is that there shouldn't really be any animals in the garden, or if it looks like the produce has been nibbled on or visited by the critter, you're just going to want to avoid that produce. Eventually you'll probably want to harvest it and compost it, so it's not going to contaminate other things in the garden. The second important thing to remember is to always wash your hands. So we want to keep the produce clean, and the easiest way to do that is just to have clean hands before you're harvesting, and then after you harvest. It's a good idea to wash your hands then as well. Before you take the produce to the donation center, just give it a quick rinse off to remove any sort of large clumps of dirt that may be on the produce, and keep the produce cool. So harvest in the morning or later in the day, or if you're going to be harvesting and during the day, keep the produce cool by putting it on ice and keeping it in the shade. Next slide please. Okay, I'm not sure if we're at the next slide. It's not showing up on our screen, but we should be talking about tracking and recording the produce that you're donating. So it's good to always keep track of what you're going to be donating, and the best way to do this is by weighing the produce, and then you can write it on a piece of paper and then enter it into maybe a Google document, or there's a website called farmingconcrete.org, and this is a really cool website because you can log on and see what people are donating in your city and the U.S. and actually all over the world too. So it's just a neat way to see the larger impact of food donation programs. And then always keep a record of what you're donating and how much you've donated in the garden, so that the community gardeners can see the impact that they're a part of. And because they may not be able to participate in the harvesting, but they might donate by putting it in the cooler at a different time, such as they do at Charles Hay. So that's just a good way to keep them in the loop. And of course, always take photos and create memories. So Samuel does a really great job at this by having the harvest be every Monday night in the summer, and it's a fun atmosphere. They're cooking out and the kids are playing at the playground and everyone's chatting and getting to know each other, and at the same time, they're harvesting the produce to donate. Next slide, please. So kind of touching on that again, it's deepening relationships. So you want to create a strong relationship relationship with the gardeners, as well as with the organization that you're partnering with and with those in the school. If you can, try to invite the school staff and the parents of the school and staff and clients or volunteers from the partner organization to your garden events, or have them help out with a harvest one night. If possible, I would encourage your gardeners at your community garden or the school to volunteer with the partner organization. That's just another way to give back to your community. And all of this will help you find deeper ways to follow how the food is impacting the neighbors that you have in need. Next slide, please. I think that's the end.
Yes, thank you guys so much, Lara and Mikhaela. That information was really useful, I think very concrete, and that other people will be able to use, hopefully, if they're interested in setting up their own school garden produce donation program. And Ample Harvest is that website where I believe you can search for pantries. It's like a national database for this work. So thank you for bringing that up as well. So everyone's contact information should be on the slide that you all see now. So feel free to reach out to any of the presenters or either Andrew or myself at Slow Food. If anyone has any questions now for Thom, Lara, or Mikhaela, we can have a little bit of a discussion. And if there are questions, it would be great if you could enter it into the chat function. Okay, if there are no questions, that I will take to mean it was a very successful presentation that was very well explained. So I just want to close out this webinar by announcing that this week, September 1st, Slow Food USA will start our annual September membership campaign. So it's that time of year where we make a big push organizationally to bring new people into the slow food community. So the theme for this year's campaign is Come to the Table. So we're really encouraging new folks to really join the slow food family. And so since I assume many of you are connected to slow food through our school garden work, I would like to invite you all to join Slow Food USA as a member. We have a very special day on September 15th, Give What You Can Day, where you can donate any dollar amount to Slow Food USA and become a member of this incredible national and international network. Another exciting opportunity, on Thursday, September 8th, we will be joined by Marion Nessel, who is a nutrition, food studies, and public health professor at NYU. She's very famous in terms of writing about food politics. And we are having a town hall call with Marion Nessel, where she will be discussing food in the national election. So again, that's Thursday, September 8th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. There's a link to RSVP to join the call because we do have a limited number of slots on our conference line. So that is sure to be a very exciting discussion. So I hope that you'll be able to join us. And then let's see, there's a question, is there any way to listen to the call after? Yes, I believe the National Town Hall call with Marion Nessel will be recorded and posted on the Slow Food USA website. So stay tuned for that, and I hope you'll join us as a member of Slow Food USA in the coming month. Thank you to all of our presenters. We appreciate your time and expertise, and thank you to everyone for your patience with our technical difficulties. We hope you'll join us for next month's webinar, which will be about farm raiser, so healthy school fundraising, and that'll be at the end of September. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a great rest of your Wednesday.